Alright guys, this is Grant coming to you from the Players Aid. We're actually at WBC this weekend. We're here, this is Wednesday night, we're here with Keith Tracton. I don't know that he needs an introduction. Everybody knows about his recent successful Kickstarter for World at War 85. So we're here to talk a little bit about the game. You can see it here in the foreground. Beautiful, beautiful looking game, by the way.
Thank you.
I know the map, this is a special enlarged map. What are the maps normally like?
This is actually 8 maps.
Okay.
I mean, if you've got it closer look, you'd see that in the lower right corner is the map number. It's part of our Defense of Frankfurt expansion for the base game, Storming the Gap. The maps are actually, the 8 separate maps are actually geomorphic, but in this particular configuration, they represent an actual piece of terrain in the Fulda Gap. Fulda Gap's pretty big. So it's actually pretty small because we have a scale of 150 yards a hex.
There you go.
But at the same time, so you get the feel of fighting in the actual terrain, which we were excited to do. We've been doing. We hope you guys enjoy it as much as we do. We do get feedback sometimes from guys who posted there. Somebody's like, "Where's the town I was in?" And I'm like, "I don't know if it's that part of the gap." But
there you
it's
go.
nice to know that everybody's keeping an eye on it.
So what is World at War 85 about?
World at War 85 is going to be a series of games, but that are basically World War III. What would happen if World War III had broken out in 1985? So the equipment of the time. We don't delve so much into the politics. It's a platoon-level tactical game.
Okay, there you go.
But basically it's exciting to be able to put all this equipment on the table. It's not just the base game has geomorphic maps that are more generic. This is a very specific geographic terrain, but part of it is that it's a kit. You can design your own things.
So you can mix and match.
You can
maps,
mix and match anything. Yeah. The plan across the 8 planned games is that all the maps are geomorphic, and we've actually done the design on all of this already. So they're tucked in the background. We have those in our back pocket. This is part of that process. It was relatively easy to get this up for Kickstarter because we have a process in place to go from a map to the geomorphic map.
Okay.
So just in the first game and from the Kickstarter, the game itself had 4 maps. This has 8 maps. Okay. There's actually winter versions from the stretch goals, so you double that. There's a second expansion, Storm and Steel, based on the novel Storm and Steel that Brad Smith did, basically. Since he used real-world places, we were able to just segue in, look where he did his things. He used his actual place names. Turns out, oh, look, there it is. Yeah. We made maps from that. That has 3 more maps with the winter side. So I think I lost track. 8 and 3 and 4 is 7. There's 15 maps. That's
a lot of maps.
Plus the winter maps is 30.
Nice.
All geomorphic.
Wow.
Little things are, I mean, we don't have any winter scenarios because it's a summer campaign. But you still have the option. There are weather rules, though, that will allow you to say, okay, there's snow on the ground, you just look at the weather chart. But one of the big differences is there's cultivated terrain here with very high crops as they have in Europe. 5 to 8 feet is my understanding that the rye can stand.
Wow.
Think Waterloo.
Yeah, there you go.
And what happens is it cuts the line of sight considerably. So now you have a knife fight, but on the winter side, now you have the 3,000 meter line of the tow people are going to love this when their anti-tank gun missiles go sailing down that valley, but you can't do that.
Yeah. So let's focus on that a little bit.
Sure.
Platoon level.
Platoon level. Yeah.
What are the typical firefights like? You mentioned terrain is a major feature, so it's going to block a lot of stuff. What ends up happening in these fights? You kind of talked about it with me a little earlier.
Yeah. Well, on this particular map, I'll stick with this since it's out here. There are alleys of approach. If you're on the hills, you can actually control the valleys because all those crops sort of disappear for line of sight. But then somebody's going to appear on the other side of the valley, and if you're on the edge of the hill, you're exposed. Yeah. So if you retreat behind the crops that are on the hill, now you're not exposed. So it really becomes where you expose yourself, how much exposure you have versus how much you want from him. And sometimes people get frustrated and they're like, I can't seem to find him, and they charge. Yeah, you have your
then you're in trouble.
And now people who are advocates of the big guns on, the tanks are like, well, what happens when you use them at 300 yards? Every gun becomes scary.
Yeah, it's over. So you really have to look for your targets. You have to be patient.
You have to be patient. This gives you the benefit, like every game of, you're looking over the map. You have the advantage of looking over the map, but that's part of the fun.
God mode,
I like the way I like the way the lines move and everything. But now you're like, which direction do I go? The one thing I like about the simplicity of this system since day one is that you are almost immediately thinking, where do I want to go? How do I get there? Okay. So you're thinking tactically instead of mechanically.
Okay.
It's a
So
moderate.
you're not worrying about how you move there. You're worrying about how to get to spots and
You're
take
like,
advantage of terrain.
I want to be able to see from there because that's where I think he's going to be. So, and that for me is getting people to have buy-in as far as getting into that mode of I'm thinking like this rather than what's my die roll modifier if I move through whatever road it is. That's a moderate complexity.
Okay. So in our experience, we've played some platoon level games like White Star Rising. There's a bunch.
Yeah.
White Star Rising from Lock and Load. We've played that, and we always feel like it's very tactical. Although it's a bigger scale, do you feel like that really is the focus of this system?
Yes. In fact, this is the World War III version of that being the World War II version.
Yeah.
So it has slightly different values on the counters position because it's an older system, and the revamp for that went differently. So they have a different kind of information which fits World War II. Doesn't fit World War III. World War III, you have anti-tank guided missiles. You didn't have that anymore.
Yeah, a little different technologies.
Right. So allowing for the technologies and there's a huge number of them and a huge number of vehicle types that people may not, they kind of think they know.
Yeah.
But when you actually do the metrics on them, it's fascinating how they interact.
Okay.
But in the end, you look at the values and the way they interplay, you're like, wow, those Soviet battalions, they're really big. And, they have decent guns, and what happens when they get close? Yeah, that's the problem. Do you let them?
Yeah.
There's never enough of certain, everyone wants to play the M1 Abrams tanks.
Sure.
Even I do.
Yeah.
It's the M1 with the 105 gun because it was the first M1, 1985, not 1986 when the upgrade came in. And it is a good tank right out of the gate, the very first version. It only had a 105 gun, but still, it's fast loading. In the end, there's never enough of them. That's the key.
Yeah.
So it brings it back into when all things are equal, the trade-offs on the guns, the 105 might be slightly less than the 125, but the other things that the M1 brings to the table, enhanced move and fire, the Chobham armor, the composite armor, the speed, the ability of 3D gun stabilization, and that's like a tactical, an individual tank thing that does actually scale up to the platoon level, makes it a better vehicle in general. But there's never enough. You still have there's a lot of Soviets out there.
Yeah.
There's a minimum of 3-to-1, 4-to-1, 5-to-1 in certain unit types. I don't want to talk about artillery.
Yeah.
20-to-1, depending on which source you use. So you get the flavor of it and realize that you have to fight your M1s.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is this is actually a combined arms game because you have your platoon, your company of M1s, 3 platoons, but then you have like the M901 ITO tow vehicle, and then you have your infantry that have a tow team, a dragon team. Between all of them, they can protect each other. It's not just the M1s. The M1s are your heavy hitters. They're the ones that can fire and move and get out of the way and keep the distance enough until you run up against the objective. Then it's like, well, you need to you do trade distance for trade distance for hits.
Yeah.
You run out of room, that's when the fight really begins. One of the things we're proudest about is that I'm going to go with 80% of the scenarios because you have to allow for. I do terrible setups sometimes and I just lose.
Right.
But 80% of the scenarios go down to the last turn. As we've been testing. I really, it kind of shocks you when you're like, no, we must have imbalanced something. It's like, if you pay attention, there are really some tough scenarios. This one's going to go down. This has 6 turns left. We've done 14. And it's all going to center around here. And NATO actually has a collection of forces that are enough to oppose what's in front of them. But the Soviets have like 3 more regiments coming. That's sort of the Soviet attitude is, I'm going to leave this battalion and it's going to die because there's 3 more coming my way.
Just they keep coming.
Right.
So what does the design excel at, in your opinion?
The design excels at speed.
Okay.
We were talking earlier, and how long does it take to set up? It doesn't take long. How long does it take to play in 14 turns? Well, we were playing at a very casual pace. I was playing with my chief play tester, and we were able to pick a card, do what we want to do with the formation, go to the next card, whatever it is, pretty quickly. So if we were playing this, it would go very quickly. But we had people at the table who'd never played, didn't even read the rules, that we were sort of saying, you're going to roll the dice here, where do you want to move, showing them how to move, and they were up and running. They played for hours.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't push it because it's part of the enjoyment of it. But it's a very fast game. For something this large to play in the number of hours,
quickly.
It's very fast. The smaller scenarios, we're playing at an hour, an hour and a half. We deliberately, in the main game, we have 21 scenarios.
Yeah.
there's 4 maps in it. We don't have any scenario that's more than 3 maps, but we deliberately set up a scenario schedule where there's 1 map scenarios, there's 2 map scenarios, there's 3 map scenarios. The 4th map came in late from the Kickstarter, so we just put 1 scenario in.
Got it.
What that allows us to do is, and it's a formula for all the upcoming games. We want to emphasize the 1 mappers because people may want to play this at lunch, right? Something like that. We'll set it up very quickly. You can do that pretty quickly and get up and running, and then you're off running to play a scenario. But for people who want something meatier, yeah, you put up 3 maps and you got a battalion on one side and a regiment on the other. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So the rules. I looked over the rules. You sent me the rules a couple months ago.
Yes.
Pretty intimidating. There's a lot there. What do you think is good about the rules, and how do you think new players of this type of game are going to take to that?
It's an interesting thing because the way the rules break down is there's an edition of this game that this is based on that we tore down and built back up again. So this is completely new.
Yeah, right.
It had about 20 pages of rules, and we got a lot of pushback from, well, your rules are so much longer. I'm like, all right, look, when I went into this project, there were 20 pages of rules, and then there was a version that didn't get published where they tried to rewrite things. It was 40 pages. And then I downloaded the frequently asked questions, and there were 40 solid pages, like question, paragraph.
So lack of information leads to more questions.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
So that ended up being about 60 to 80 pages. When we actually threw everything in from every module and everything that we had to distill it down, it came in under 60 pages. I'm like, okay, that does it. So the first 30 pages, you're like, oh my God, it's 30 pages. It's 30 pages of familiarization with these are your units, these are your cards, these are what the values mean. It's like a reference. You hit page 30-ish where there's the sequence of play, and you're off and running. You know, 57 pages later, you have all you need. After that, it's Chrome and a little bit of like, you know, specifically what the abbreviations and things mean on the counter. Some people don't know what an M113 carrier is. You know, it was funny because we had an Air Force guy on Facebook, and he's like, I love the idea of this game, but I don't know what these vehicles are.
An Air Force guy,
and that's when we realized we need a glossary for the unit types. You know, you can't just assume that. So it's been a wonderful process interacting with everyone, because every time somebody brings something to our attention, we go, can we do that, and should we do that? A lot of times it's just explanation. The strength of it is that once you do get through it, or if you have the blessing of having somebody teach you, it's a moderate complexity game. It's not a high complexity game.
Well, good. So I know this Kickstarter is done. It's complete.
This number is just complete. We haven't delivered yet, but that's
right.
You know,
so that was my question. What is the timeline?
I'm gonna beg off this. I'm not the one to do this because David Heath runs Lock and Load Publishing, and I leave that to him. It's a great question though, because it is literally the difference between me being designer developer and him being the publisher. Right. So there's a big difference. Yeah, because he's the one who's got to integrate it into the printer schedule and handle this kind of. I'm just sort of an encyclopedia. Is that right? Yes.
That's very true. So Keith, one final question.
Sure.
I've heard about talk of the next iteration of the next whatever you want, next volume. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the next volume is going to be Blood and Fury. The Fulda Gap, everyone I think is familiar with as far as being in the center of the U.S. 5th Corps area of defense. We move farther north onto the North German plain, where the primary opponents are the British and the Soviets. We also have, of course, the Poles. Again, I apologize. I haven't had a chance. There's so many games running through my head right now in the series. I think there's East Germans, but don't hold me to that. But we've got a really good mix of things. I'm not going to give you any public acknowledgement of Kickstarter stretch goals, but there may be other nationalities involved. But yeah, it's going to be pretty expansive, and the terrain's going to be very different. You know, the maps are very different, and they're the fictional maps. But we always want to be able to adjunct, you know, with something that's geomorphic and maybe a little historical.
Well, great. So lots to look forward to. Very impressive game. We're going to try to play this here in a little bit. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
Keith Trachtin, once again, with Lock and Load Publishing, designing World War 85.
Storming the Gap is the first volume. And then it has 2 expansions that were part of the Kickstarter as stretch goals and will be available. One is this is the Defense of Frankfurt, and then the other is Storm and Steel, which adds in the Czechs and additional West German units since it's their country.
So lots of good stuff to go through.
Yes,
lots. So thanks for your time, Keith.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.